Hello, everyone. Welcome to our monthly Get Pitched event. My name is Lyle Martin, CEO and founder of Springboard Equity. I'd like to welcome our investor colleagues, physician colleagues with the Springboard Equity platform, in addition to our Physicians Capital Network. We're very excited today to present or have presentations by three very unique and differentiated companies. We've got Ceresti Health, followed by Hub Medical Device Group, and finalizing or finishing off with the EternoGen. A couple of housekeeping notes as we go through here. As always, you'll see on the right-hand side, we have a chat feature. So as the presenters are presenting their pitch, use that feature, the chat box, to ask any questions. It'll be a 12-minute pitch followed by a 5-minute Q&A. We'll be consolidating those. Hopefully we'll get 3 or 4 questions in for each group. Whatever questions we do not get to, we will consolidate, follow up. Each presenter will get back to you within the next 24 hours. In addition, there will be a replay link that's sent out to all registrants. So if you happen to need to jump in early or get off late, there all will be a full replay. Next slide, please. As you see, we got some basic disclaimers, one being that Springboard Equity is not making any recommendations or verifications on each company or the investment offering therefore. What we will do is anyone that has an interest in follow-up conversations, as you know, this is a 12-minute pitch, so certainly there's a lot more information that can be provided in follow-up, at which point you'll be able to connect you directly with those companies in order to follow up with them. At this point, I think I will turn it over, next slide, to our first company, CEO of Ceresti Health, Dirk Sunkson. Dirk?
Can you hear me, guys?
We can hear you.
So. All right, very good. Hey, it's a pleasure to be on this call. Thanks for the opportunity, Lyle. My name is Dirk Sunkson. I'm the founder, co-founder, and CEO of Ceresti Health. Let's go to the next slide. We've got some legal disclaimers here, which you can read at your leisure, but how about going to the next slide? So Ceresti is focused on Alzheimer's disease, but we're focused on it from the perspective of looking at it through the lens of chronic conditions and care challenges, and specifically the impact that the disease has on folks who have these chronic conditions and care challenges. So just by background, so this is my second sort of startup which I founded. I spent 12 years founding actually in my garage and then selling for about $200 million a company in the digital pathology space. So I've had the experience of sort of starting with a blank piece of paper and building a company that was venture-backed, raised about $50 million, and being able to sell it successfully. This is a slightly different opportunity. It's not lab medicine, not pathology. This is really the first opportunity to tackle, Alzheimer's disease, which has been viewed as the most expensive condition in the United States. So I want to kind of share with you how we're tackling that. Let's go to the next slide. So I wanted to sort of just provide some background on chronic conditions. You hear a lot about chronic conditions. We've got a lot of physicians on the call. So this should come as no surprise that as the number of chronic conditions increases, the costs increase. So this slide kind of shows fee-for-service Medicare spending. And you can see it's about $32,000 for somebody who has more than 6 chronic conditions, and it's much less, about $2,000 if you have none or only one. So that disparity in chronic conditions is sort of the lens that we look at a lot of things through in healthcare, right? And if you go to the next slide, we're kind of showing here how the number of chronic conditions are allocated amongst the typical population of folks over 65, shown here in blue. So you see that in the blue color, we have about 14% of seniors have more than 6 chronic conditions, but 32% have 2 to 3 and 32% have 0 or 1. So in red, we show the number of chronic conditions that are linked to people living with dementia. So we're using PLWD, persons living with dementia, as an abbreviation for patients And we're using ADOD, Alzheimer's disease and other dementias, as an abbreviation for the disease. And you can see that there's a hugely higher number of folks who have chronic conditions once they're afflicted by Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. Let's go to the next slide. Not surprisingly, because we know chronic conditions are correlated with costs, the cost of managing chronic conditions to the extent they're compounded by dementia is staggering, right? And so we have today about 6 million people in the US who have this condition. It's projected to increase to 15 million people. It represents about 11% of US seniors over the age of 65. From a Medicare perspective, you have $13,000 more on average for somebody who has a disease. Medicaid, which is mostly long-term care, is about $10,000. Out-of-pocket is high. The RAND Corporation calls Alzheimer's disease the most expensive condition in the United States. We're spending about $236 billion directly on this disease today, and that's projected to increase north of $1 trillion by the year 2050, prompting some people to say that this is a disease that can absolutely bankrupt Medicare. So why are the costs so high? Can we have the next slide, please? So this slide sort of highlights why the costs are high. And persons living with dementia go to the hospital more frequently, right? So their admissions rate is twice that of somebody who doesn't have the disease. When they're in the hospital, they stay about 1.7 days longer on average. When they leave the hospital, their readmissions rate is about 20% higher. And then if you actually count the number of care transitions from home to hospital, home to nursing home, maybe nursing home back to home or to home health or back to the hospital, that number of care transitions is about 3 times higher for somebody with dementia than without. So a lot of the costs that you incur are not only the inpatient costs, but then also the subacute costs of utilizing nursing home and home health. So you're utilizing more nursing home days, more home health days. And of course, you sort of say, okay, costs are higher. I understand I'm utilizing more services. Why is that the case? And the sort of simplistic reason is that somebody who has this disease loses the ability to self-manage, so that if they have chronic conditions, they become unmanaged. And so a lot of the lack of self-management by someone with dementia contributes to the high utilization of services and the higher cost. Next slide, please. So when you sort of think about what are the options here, right? If you can't self-manage, if you have a child and you're a parent, you take care of your child. If you have a loved one who has dementia and they can't self-manage, really the best option you have is to have that family caregiver step in and to provide care. And that's really what everybody who's studied this problem has talked about, right? So the elements of what is essential to effective dementia care are well understood. They've been researched. You know, Medicare has funded studies. CMS has funded studies with large academic centers to sort of show this. And, you know, fundamentally, we kind of all know what has to be done, but nobody's been able to make a business out of it. And the elements of care are largely founded around training and supporting the family caregiver. So that's been demonstrated to reduce costs and improve care. And it's also been shown that the reasons why somebody with dementia will go to the hospital can be prevented in the home. They're unmanaged chronic conditions, but then there's also a higher rate of urinary tract infections, fecal impaction, pneumonia, behavior faults. And of course, the stress of caregiving is highest for dementia than for any other disease. And there are about 15 million Americans today who are caregivers for somebody with dementia. Next slide, please. Right, so where does Ceresti fit in? So Ceresti has sort of said, look, we're going to figure out how to make a business out of this. We're going to figure out how to operationalize everything that's known about this disease, and we're going to bring a complete solution to market that can actually impact care, but it has to be done through the lens of improving the ROI for people who might pay for it. So when we look at the opportunities for the business, we sort of look at 3 areas. We look at just improving care for a family. So we have what's called a family program. It's a 10-week program. I'm going to show you in a second how we deliver that. That's really aimed at improving care for family members, reducing the burden. We then have a second program we call the transitions program, which is really aimed at hospitals and health systems who are concerned about, you know, how do I discharge these folks? How do I do it effectively? Reducing length of stay, reducing readmissions, and so forth. And then finally, there's a prevent program where we could go to a payer provider, like a Medicare Advantage player, and we could carve out a high-risk portion of that population, put them on the program, and we could really prevent admissions to ERs and hospitals and so forth. When we look at that in a sort of very simplistic way, this is just an incredible big market because nobody's addressing it. So our estimate is that the addressable market today is about $3 billion a year just for dementia. Next slide, please. So what does this program look like? At the highest level, we provide a piece of technology, a tablet device, to a family in the home. Right? It's a dedicated device, cell-enabled, you don't need Wi-Fi, and it's intended to be used by the caregiver, right, to provide self-education, right? We basically provide for them, as well as get access to a coach, right? So we provide everyone who uses a tablet with a dedicated caregiver coach. That's a remote individual who communicates with a caregiver through the tablet. The secret sauce that we really have is the ability to personalize and the ability to engage. Right, so our curriculum is personalized in such a way that every caregiver, patient, dyad gets a different program, and then we can sort of track the engagement through our cloud-based infrastructure, so we always know what they're doing when they're doing it, and we ask them to check in with us every day. We have an opportunity for family members and for community resources to provide support. When appropriate, we provide long-term care planning support like advanced directives. And then there's an element of our program that really tries to engage somebody with dementia and provides best practices for how you do that. Next slide, please. So we've done a pilot study here in San Diego where we actually demonstrated, significant levels of engagement, adherence to the program, and satisfaction. So based on those results, we have really now developed a comprehensive program that we plan to launch here in San Diego in January, right? So this family program will be offered first in San Diego, and then sort of once we, work through some teething problems, which no doubt we'll encounter, we're going to offer that on a nationwide basis, probably sometime in the second quarter of next year. And we're in the process of actually talking to some health systems about doing some pilot studies around our transitions program. Next slide, please. So just to sort of position us in the space of digital health, which is a very, very busy space. Right? When you think about this space, you clearly see a focus on chronic conditions. The patients who are able to self-manage are well served by companies that exist today in digital health. The more expensive patients are the ones who cannot self-manage, and that's where we're focused, and those are actually the most expensive companies, the most expensive conditions. So we're the first and the only company that's focused on what we think is the most expensive space in healthcare, which is chronic conditions for patients who can't self-manage. And then we kind of help that situation by training the family caregiver to provide the level of care and support that we think will lead to reduced utilization of healthcare services. Next slide, please. In terms of sort of timing, I talked about a family program moving to a transitions program and ultimately into a prevent program over time. Provide more detail on this if you're interested. Next slide, please. The management team that I'm working with, they were with me at my prior company largely, and we have got a neuroscientist in Kevin Liang. We have a chief technology officer in Mark Wren. Then Chris Selecki is really an expert in population health. She was a CEO of a venture-funded company focused on congestive heart failure, and is also the head of the Population Health Alliance. And then final slide, please. So, this is a pretty fast presentation here, but in summary, sort of why would you consider investing here? It's an important problem, right? It's likely to be the most expensive condition in America. We have an innovative solution. It's the world's first caregiver-centric remote care platform for this disease. The management team has been successful in organizing and orchestrating sort of a garage to successful exit proposal previously. This is recurring revenue, software-based, no manufacturing, no FDA. We don't need a new CPT code. The capital needs are actually quite modest, and there's significant barriers to entry. It's a blue ocean, right? So blue ocean means we're the only ones who are in this space, so we don't have competition, right? And we're focused on a large market. There's actually opportunities beyond Alzheimer's disease that we didn't talk about in this discussion here. We figured out a clear path to getting paid in this increasingly value-based healthcare environment. We think there's a high opportunity for strategic exit premium from actually multiple potential acquirers. And most importantly, we've been highly efficient in using capital, and I think that's preserved a big upside for investors. Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you, Dirk. As a reminder, everyone, please use the right-hand side for any questions that you have for Dirk regarding Ceresti and the opportunity here. So, first question, Dirk, what is the business model for each of your programs?
Thanks, Lyle. So I didn't talk at length about sort of how we're offering this, but at a high level, the family program is going to be offered as a flat fee, as an introductory price of about $1,000 for a 12-week program. We're going to charge about $300 for the device that will be refunded when we get the device back. So for about $1,000, we can get a family really through this program. It'll allow a family to get basically in 12 weeks kind of the learning and the knowledge and the skills that they would otherwise probably take 5 years to get. So we think there's a strong value proposition there. The transitions program, which will be offered to health systems and to hospitals, will be a fixed fee for a family, and we may have to adjust the price depending on sort of what we're doing in terms of specific remote monitoring needs. If we have to provide a scale or a blood pressure cuff to monitor congestive heart failure, we may have an incremental fee for that part of the program. And then we're really aiming for a per member per month fee when we're starting to talk to payers and providers in the PREVENT program. Thanks, Lyle.
Okay, next question. Who will buy your product? Is this direct to consumer?
Yeah, so the answer is the ultimate, get to the gold, pot of gold is to sell this to hospitals, health systems, and payers and providers who are going to see value by reimbursing families to get onto this program. We are offering this on a consumer basis in January, and I'll be honest, we don't know how big of a consumer business we can or want to build, right? This is partly to get some experience, partly to get some traction, to figure out what works and what's not working. But we are not a company that's ultimately interested in building a big consumer brand, but we do think to sort of get going that this is a sort of the lowest hanging fruit for us, is to put this out there and just see what kind of traction we get. But the people who are going to deliver the value, and if you went back to the slide on the market opportunity, the multi-billion-dollar markets are really with the hospital systems, the health systems, the payers, and the providers.
Okay, and it looks like we have time for one last question. There are a few others, so we'll consolidate those for you at the end, and Dirk will follow up. What is proprietary about your program, and what are the barriers to entry?
Yeah, so this is a really, I think, important question, because we sort of talk about we're delivering a tablet, we've got a coach, but the thing that I actually didn't spend much time on is that under the hood, we have this personalization engine. So everything about what we're doing is founded in personalizing the program to drive engagement, to drive compliance or adherence to the program. So that's the technology piece. So we have some proprietary assessments that really allow us from day one to get a sense of what is this family, what is this caregiver, what does this patient need? And then the program is adaptive as we move on based on how a caregiver will engage with the program and input from the coach. So the secret sauce is really a personalization engine that can achieve what I would say are unprecedented levels of engagement, and really engagement, which is interacting with the technology and interacting with a coach and acquiring knowledge, skills, and confidence. That's the foundation for really implementing now best practices that will reduce acute incidents like ER visits and hospitalizations, and at the same time provide a reduced burden and improved quality for the family. So it's really, there's a lot of algorithms, there's a lot of sort of predictive analytics under the hood of this personalization engine, which are really quite transparent to the end users of our program.
Okay, thank you, Dirk. Very much appreciated. And again, there are a couple of other questions that we will consolidate and get over to you. At this point, we're going to move on to our next company and speaker. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce the CEO, Tom Rushton of Hub Medical Device Group. Tom.
Thanks, Lyle. Hi, everyone. Thanks for attending. My name is Tom Rushton, and I am the president and CEO of the Hub Medical Device Group in Beverly, Mass. Next slide, please. So our company's mission is very simple. We turn medical device ideas into commercial reality. That means we can take something like a napkin sketch and move it through all stages of product development and then ready for sale in the marketplace. That looks like an incomplete slide, Wally. Oh, look at that. So that's what we can do. We're a one-stop shop solution, and we provide industry-specific design and engineering, complete rapid prototype services utilizing all current methods, including 3D printing, FDA regulatory guidance and 510K submissions, as well as CE mark submissions for use in Europe, and full production manufacturing resources for any size production run with any material. So we are an ongoing business. We started business in 2013, and we have an active client list in sales. Today's presentation is geared to raise the investment capital needed to grow rapidly and take advantage fully of the vast and ever expanding medical device market. Next slide, please. So the Hub Medical Device Group is a sales-driven company, first and foremost. It's kind of in our corporate DNA. We're sales hunters. Our sales cycle starts with medical device ideas generated by engineers, doctors, and inventors. So we find those ideas from medical device OEMs of all sizes. This might be a startup or a large company like a Biomet or a Stryker. They all have one thing in common, though. They don't have the resources they need to complete all their projects. Other ideas come directly from orthopedic docs and other investors. Now, to date, we've confined our efforts to the orthopedic segment. That includes spine, craniomaxillofacial fixation, small bone fixation, and joint replacement, among other things. We also find sales opportunities at trade shows and annual meetings like AAOS. That's the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons annual meeting. We have an energetic direct sales effort that includes working through networking sites like LinkedIn and plain old-fashioned cold calling. Now, our projects include surgical instruments, implants, that includes plates and screws, operating room devices, and soft tissue instruments. These are mainly Class 1 and Class 2 devices. And we work with both reusable and single-use instruments. Right now, there's a big push to convert reusable instruments to single-use, thereby decreasing the workload on the hospital's central sterile department. Next slide, please. So this slide illustrates how we turn the product ideas we find into actual money. Our business model revolves around the 4 Ps. That's projects, prototypes, patents, and production. So the projects are engineering and design and scope, and those drive billable hours and design fees. Our value proposition with regard to engineering and design is twofold. First, our engineering team has decades of medical device industry experience. And secondly, we place a great focus on DFM, or design for manufacture principles. We want to ensure that any design we come up with can be manufactured for a reasonable cost. Second are the prototypes, and these are the physical checkpoints, right, for any project. So we build physical prototypes first for design demonstration. That would be the first prototype that someone would get and take a look at and say, yeah, I sort of like what we're doing. The second is for design verification. So once we land on a basic design, we follow up with a set of functional prototypes for doctors and other key opinion leaders to test. Sometimes these are cadaver labs and other testing areas. And third, for design validation. So after the feedback comes from the doctors, we build prototypes for use in clinical trials and formal lab testing as required for 510K submissions, if that's required. As far as patents are concerned, well, they're applied for along the way, and the goal is for us to be included in the patent along with the OEM that we're working for. This generates additional revenue streams through licensing fees and value to the company. And production refers to production run manufacturing. So our business model is to follow the product all the way from the beginning to the end. That means providing some or all of the production manufacturing and assembly of the device. And this creates projectable annual sales for us as the product sales increase for the OEM. Next slide, please. So this will give you an idea from our current pipeline. We were contacted by a publicly traded OEM to help create a single-use nerve cutting device. Now, our client spent a lot of time and money with an industrial design firm only to produce a prototype that couldn't be manufactured. So we engaged the company for engineering design work, and that generated fees of about $15,000. So for the prototype, we just completed our design demonstration phase. That's the first phase. And so we developed 2 functioning prototypes and tested the cutting efficiency on human nerve tissue. The efficiency exceeded the client's expectations. So the next step is going to be design verification prototypes and then design validation for clinical trials. And this will bring additional income. As far as the patent is concerned, as part of our agreement, our team will be included in the patent, and that brings value, of course, to the company. There are more than 900,000 nerve repair surgeries performed in the US annually, and there's no standard device used to effectively cut nerve. For production, we project on doing all of the manufacturing for this project, and we project the OEM will gain a 50% market share in 5 years. That means revenues of 13 million or more by 2021. Again, there's no other device like this one for its space. Now, that's just one of our projects. So not all projects, of course, will be home runs, and that's why we keep the pipeline full. Next slide, please. Oh, one back. Thanks. So these are 3 additional projects from our sales pipeline. First, we have an orthopedic leg positioning system. You can see that to the right. It attaches to the operating table. That can be adjusted to hold a patient's leg during an orthopedic procedure, usually something like the introduction of a femoral nail. We have is an addition to an existing product line for an orthopedic company in Europe. So this system includes soft tissue cutting devices and related instruments, and we'll be handling the 510(k) submission with the FDA as well as the CE mark submissions. Lastly, we have an intramedullary nail system. It's a minimally invasive single-use system to reduce fractures in the hand. The current procedure is multiple tools and more trauma to the hand. Our design uses only 1 tool and 5 different size nails. It's a dramatic improvement to the surgical procedure. So you can see the projected sales to the Hub Medical Device Group by 2021 is an additional 6 to 10 million. Next slide, please. In addition, we're working on new projects from a new client. Oop, there we go, thanks. So in addition, we're working on new projects for a new client that landed just prior to Thanksgiving. Each of the 3, a tendon anchor system, a hammer toe correction system, and a Charcot foot fixation system, that's going to all include surgical instruments, implants, and full 510(k) and CE components. Just to let you know, a 510(k) and CE submission package from us, depending on complexity, usually runs around about 100,000 to 150,000. Next slide, please. There are several companies in our space, but the one I want to focus on is the one that's really most like us, and that's Bridge Medica in Mansfield, Mass. They began with 4 employees in 2008, and they now have 85. They provide design through production services. They do assembly and quality inspections in-house, and they get parts manufactured through a supplier base. It's exactly how we plan on doing it and how we do it now. They're ISO 1345 certified. I'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. And their estimated sales this year in 2016, 15 million, and they have 44 patents pending or approved. Now, we had great conversations with their CEO, and because the market's so large, there are actually more opportunities for collaboration than outright competition. Next slide, please. This slide will give you an idea of the size of the orthopedics products market and how we plan to fit in the coming years. So your total available market is nearly 47 billion. The serviceable available market, and that's for outsourced precision medical manufacturing, is 4 billion. We expect this segment to grow at greater than that 6.5 annual rate that's shown there, given the renewed emphasis on manufacturing in the United States. So our serviceable obtainable market that we're projecting for 2021, we project annual sales to be 30 million plus. And as you can see from our current pipeline, we have a good start on that. Next slide. So the use of the investment funds. The first thing we're going to do is to complete our ISO 1345 certification. ISO 13485 is the industry standard quality system for medical devices worldwide. Now, we are currently ISO 13485 compliant. We have all of the standard policies and procedures in place, but we need to take the next step to be certified by a recognized certification body. It's sort of like a college getting its accreditation. Secondly, we're going to hire full-time engineering and quality staff. That's going to allow the founders to focus on what they do best. That's keeping the pipeline full. We're going to increase our sales efforts through industry trade shows and associations. And we're going to lease some manufacturing equipment, probably injection molded plastic and CNC machining, as well as assembly equipment and clean room assembly, some quality control equipment as well. And the remainder will be used for operational needs and cash flow. Next slide, please. So we project 12 to 15 commercialized projects of various sizes through 2021, and they sort of build on top of each other. So in order to achieve this, our key performance indicators are that we need to generate 12 to 15 new projects per year to achieve 3 to 4 new annual product rollouts, and each one of those product rollouts have an ongoing component of either manufacturing and or licensing. And to let you know how we're doing so far, in this year alone, in 2016, we've opened 20 new projects, so we're well ahead of pace. Our business model is heavy on the engineering side, and so that produces a gross profit of about 55%. So by 2021, we project a $30 million company in sales with $15 million in gross profits. Next slide, please. So with projected sales of $30 million through 2021, by that time, the company's worth would conservatively be around $60 million, and that creates a roughly 10 times return after 5 years. As far as exit strategy is concerned, we will be an ideal acquisition target in 4 or 5 years. I listed 5 to 7 in the slide to be conservative, but really 4 to 5 is really the focus. Wally, I think there's a little bit more of that slide. Thanks. The companies would be, back one, please. Oh, no, that's good. Thanks. The companies that would be interested in acquiring the hub would include similar companies to ours like Bridge Medica or Orchid Orthopedics, our OEM clients, the people that we actually work for now who are looking to increase their own sales pipelines, medical device manufacturers looking to buy a book of business, or large non-medical manufacturers looking to diversify into the medical device segment. Next slide, please. Our core leadership team consists of the founders, and that's myself and Kevin Desmond. Kevin and I were co-owners of a medical case company. Kevin has more than 30 years of medical device manufacturing and business development experience, and I have more than 20 years of executive marketing and business development experience. A partial list of our past and present clients include big names in the industry like Smith & Nephew, Biomet, Wright Medical, Stryker, K2M, and others. But even with all the years of experience and our last, business experience, we really believe that the skill set most essential for success is our sales experience. We have learned above all that all business is sales. On our technical side, Bob Strand's our senior mechanical engineer, and Bob's body of work is vast. In fact, I think he's got a whole website to show of it. And his 30 years of work experience includes stints at Instrumentation Labs, DePuy MyTech, and Boston Scientific, as well as others. Sam Sun's our senior regulatory and quality engineer, and he too has about 30 years track record of making successful 510K submissions for FDA and also into Europe. So he has both domestic and international experience. So I have no doubt that our core management team can fulfill our KPIs and fulfill our goals and drive those sales north of 30 million by 2021. Next slide, please. So we appreciate being able to share our company vision and the investment opportunity with you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Lyle.
Thanks, Tom. Again, anyone questions for Tom, please enter them in the right-hand side of the box on the chat function. First question, Tom, why the focus on single-use devices?
Oh, okay, thanks. So single-use devices, as you know, there's been lots of challenges in hospital settings and surgical center settings with hospital-acquired infections. So one reason that they're going to they're converting reusable instruments into single use is to take those out of central sterile and reduce the risk of infection to a patient. Now, the upside for us is that in the olden days, we would make 30 sets of orthopedic instruments that would be reused over and over again. Now, what that means is for some of these things and for most of these things, you're making thousands, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands of individual instruments that can be sterilized individually, opened up in the surgical, in the operating room, and then discarded afterwards. So it's a not only is it a big risk, lowers the risk at the hospital level, but it winds up being a good business boost for us.
Okay. Next question. You mentioned, I guess, I'm trying to paraphrase here, but around competition or a similar company. Do you guys have any ongoing strategic partnerships in places that sustains, I guess, ongoing business?
Yeah, we do actually. We've got, aside from several just straight, client bases, we actually just now the three projects that we last saw came from a company that actually has a great number of physicians and also work with patents. They sort of work on the patent end and on the physician testing end. So when they can do everything except all the stuff that we do. So it's a very good strategic partnership for us, and we're growing that. And then also growing, our straight client OEM base.
Okay. And we have time for one last question here. Who sells the products you develop, and are they only sold in the U.S.?
The products that we sell are sold actually by when we develop this for the OEM and for the Stryker and the Biomet, they already have big distribution networks. So they either sell directly to hospitals and surgical centers, or they sell through a great distributor network. There are medical device distributors from coast to coast. And we also have, like I said before, one of the things that we can do is through the CE submissions, they sell into Europe as well. So, and Europe, anywhere in the EU already has a pretty good network of distribution.
Lyle, are you there?
Okay, sorry about that. I just was on mute for a little bit. Can you hear me now, Wally?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, appreciate it, Tom. Thank you very much. At this point, let's turn it over to our final presentation of the day, EternoGen Aesthetics. And with that, I'll turn it over to the CEO, Luis Jimenez. Luis.
Good evening. A pleasure to present to you guys, and I appreciate the opportunity. I'm here to present EternoGen Aesthetics. We're a medical device company that's going to own the market in the lower part of the face for facial aesthetic injectables. And just so wanted to introduce with a recent internationally conducted survey that really reflected the changes in consumer preference. Over 83% of women said that they like to see in their aesthetic procedures the ability to look as natural as possible. And really, that's a hugely unmet need because there's nothing to really restore lost tissue and skin strength. And that's what we can deliver. Would be the first ones to commercialize a product we call RPC in a new category of care called biodermal restoration. So if you go to the next slide. Just our notices here, if you can proceed to the next one. So our core belief is that nature has already perfected the optimal anti-aging protein. Collagen is over 80% of what the skin is made of. And you would think that this would be the #1 use of products to restore in lost tissue. but there isn't. And so we're bringing back collagen in a category we call biodermal restoration to really restore the skin as nature intended, to provide lips as nature intended. If you go to the next slide. So how does this really translate into the industry? We really believe there hasn't been an innovation in over 20 years. The market started with repositioning, really going under the knife with plastic surgery and dermatology. There's refilling that happened over 20 years, again, with hyaluronic acid and other types of biomaterials. And then more recently, the relaxation, the use of Botox, of neurotoxins to treat the face. But there really hasn't been innovation. And so we are finding ourselves in a market that needs differentiation, really needs that disruptive solution to meet the unmet need of the industry for natural results. And that's what we do. We restore lost tissue. So we address the root cause of skin aging, which is the loss of collagen. We have a strong intellectual property portfolio, which we've patented worldwide. Our results are clinically proven, which I'll talk to you in a little bit. And we are going to be achieving revenues next year. Our target is to achieve $100 million of sales in 5 years. Go to the next slide. So the current problem, as I mentioned, is really dominated by there's really no option to directly restore lost skin density. If you look at the standard of care, is the use of hyaluronic acids, which are great for certain areas, but they don't really restore tissue. So if you really go to how they work, you can see in the middle slide that's an image of a cross-section of hyaluronic acid after injection. And it really inflates the tissue and it looks blue. Contrast to what I'm here to talk to you about, biodermal restoration, you can't really tell the difference between the tissue and our injection. So the current limitations of hyaluronic acids, which are the #1 procedures used to correct wrinkles and signs of aging, is that they swell, they're palpable, and they form lumps. They can have a bluish discoloration, and it really is the source of the issue. They don't restore lost tissue. And if you go to the next slide, here's what our solution is. We have a liquid that upon injection actually turns into skin. This liquid can be injected through the smallest gauge needle, so you have higher patient comfort, higher control, and upon injection, you could actually feel that it actually forms skin. And after injection, within 2 weeks, it actually is fully incorporated. If you click once, can you click, Wally? You see our competitive advantages is really the most natural look. And I talked to you about the disruptive, really desire of the target consumers to actually look like themselves. This will directly allow them to do that. We have higher delivery control, and really we can actually own the market for lips and sensitive areas around the eyes and around the mouth. This will be able to give consumers the ability to avoid the done look. Really succinctly, how we differentiate ourselves is how the media dubbed ourselves when we started to actually get clinical results and have a lot of media attention. They describe our product as liquid tissue in a syringe. And I think it's a very eloquent manner to communicate what this biomaterial that's really pioneering in biological engineering can do. If we go to the next slide. So the market is very large, as you can imagine. In 2017, there was nearly $2 billion of addressable market worldwide, growing at double digits. That translates into roughly 5.3 million syringes of current hyaluronic acids basically being sold worldwide. If we translate that to what are the sensitive areas that are needed, that's about 37% of the procedures are in the lips, around the mouth, and around the eyes. And we really characterize that as our market opportunity. So given the market opportunity, the growth of the market, we believe we could achieve $100 million of sales, not even really considering the US market. Our target market currently is European approval, for which we envision to achieve next year. The opportunity, again, is really providing the natural looks and restoring skin tissue. It's pretty simple. You go to the next slide. So how do we commercialize our product? We're really a company that's expertise. I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a little bit, about commercial expertise and development of a new category of care. Our product branding has already been developed with a creative agency in London, which actually have developed the #1 brands in the world in this market. So we're disruptive with the branding. We create a premium brand that will have a premium of about 40% over current golden standards. And after approval, we create more clinical substantiation. With more key opinion leader endorsement, we really meet the need for strategics and new entrants into this industry, and we believe that that will generate significant amount of interest to pursue a potential merger or acquisition. If you go to the next slide. Our really management team has the industry experts who have been at the forefront of medical aesthetics for over 40 decades. Our CEO, Anna Tenstam, recently did an exit with an Israeli company for 30 times EBITDA, $160 million, with another collagen product. So she's done it before, commercialized Restylane also. Our Chief Commercialization Officer, Charles Weatherston, was the Director of Marketing for Allergan when they developed the brand Juvederm Ultra. He was also involved in the launch of Botox. Our Chief Scientific Officer, Dale DeVore, was in virtually all the panel meetings for FDA for approval of dermal fillers in the market. And really at the core is academic research with Dr. Sheila Grant, who's a professor at the Biological Engineering Department, University of Missouri. I have experience commercializing products with Johnson & Johnson in medical devices and also in reimbursement arena. We go to the next slide. So current round is really preceding a series of funding that we've had from 2012 to 2015. We've raised over $8 million. We've actually secured a strategic partner, multinational pharmaceutical company that validates our value proposition. With that money, we were able to complete our clinical trials and move into the commercialization stage. Our current round of $3 million allows us to complete the manufacturing optimization and create our current inventory and achieve approval in Europe. We will then pursue an equity round for $5 million to allow us to create that clinical evidence and substantiation that I mentioned, and really engage soon thereafter with strategics for a potential exit, which is how our investors would be achieving their return. If you go to the next slide. So quite succinctly, our company has a platform technology that can really treat the root cause of aging. We are addressing a $2 billion market with over 12% annual growth rate that is focused on reversing skin aging. The clinically proven product that we have delivers the most natural results, and this is a significant improvement over current fillers limitations. We have a high level of interest from strategics. We already have one partner. A lot of companies expressing interest how to complement their portfolio company products currently, and we expect to generate revenue and approval in Europe next year. If you go to the next slide, why to invest? I just wanted to summarize. This is an opportunity to invest in a pioneering, groundbreaking innovation in basically biological engineering. And if I were to summarize this, we really believe we have the next Botox here, and we hope to continue to develop our pool of partners with investors who continually reinvest in our company. So thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you. I think we had a few just reference slides there at the end. Thank you very much, Luis. We'll jump right into the Q&A so we can stay on time here. First question, does the product need special training or injection technique?
That's a great question, Lyle. Actually, the product is injected just in the same manner as other dermal fillers, so there's no specific type of training. The only difference is that it injects much smoother, and the physician has higher control.
Okay, very succinct. Next question is around competition. I think you might address it, but maybe elaborate a little bit more. With other, crowded facial aesthetics marketplace, how do you guys compete and/or fit in?
That's a great question. So we actually have developed this brand and this new category of care as a complementary option to the current portfolio products. So that's why we become so attractive, because it doesn't really directly compete with the current offerings. We go to an area where there's a need that hasn't been met. And so companies that have hyaluronic acids or neurotoxin, Botox type of products are looking for something to differentiate their portfolio and to shift market share, which is currently very competitive. And that's what we believe we can offer.
All right. Actually, we have a couple of questions around this, and it's really around the approval process or commercialization process in Europe and in the US as far as approvals and timing.
So our current approval process is pretty mature for the European Union. We have completed our clinical trial. We have some reference slides here we didn't get displayed on the clinical results that validated our value proposition. We have submitted the clinical results already to the European authorities. That has been reviewed. We've had a couple of audits already, and everything is really set up for us to complete the manufacturing validations, which is what we're raising our current funds for. We expect that approval to happen in 2017, and things are looking very well for us as well.
All right, very good. So I think we'll wrap with that last one. Thank you very much to all of our speakers. Thanks to our participants. Again, all replay link will be sent out to everyone who registered for the event. In addition, we'll follow up with any and all questions in the next 24 hours. If any other questions come to mind, feel free to send them, as you see on the screen now, to myself at Springboard Equity, Lyle at springboardequity.com, and we'll make sure they get to the respective party. So again, thank you for participating. Everyone have a wonderful holiday season, and we'll catch you in 2017. Good night.